Ronnie has managed to win at Suzuka, Brands Hatch, and now Detroit as well. The Red Bull Ring shares nothing in common with those tracks. This high-speed, mountainous circuit could prove he's versatile, or it could show what may be his weakness. We'll find out which it is as we get ready to watch Round 8 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and joining me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director, Daniel Costello, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. As we mentioned, the Red Bull Ring has become well known for its super long straights. Let's take a closer look at what makes up this classic track. Welcome to the Red Bull Ring. Located near Spielberg, Austria, this track began life in a much more fast and sweeping format. Having gone through multiple different owners, it eventually was snatched up by Red Bull and has its 3 different layouts you see today. While they range roughly between 1 to 2.5 miles in length, the thing they hold in common are fast straights, hard braking zones, and very few corners. In fact, the longest and most common layout, the Grand Prix course, has only 9 of them. Spots like Remus and Gosser are the most popular corners for overtakes, but both involve dramatic elevation changes. Each have their perils. Remus tends to see drivers make contact when the blind cutback often goes wrong, whereas Gosser tempts you into braking far too late, and the downhill nature shoots cars miserably into the gravel. A few swift bends still scatter the track, with turns like Lauda, Rent, or A1 really testing a driver's accuracy at high speeds. However, most of them don't send you off into the grass. Rather, there is a lot of paved runoff. But they often include some nasty curves most cars will want to avoid hitting, as they've been known to damage suspension and undertrays. A variety of types of racing compete here, with everything from lower Formula open-wheelers to motorcycles, touring cars, and all the way up to Formula One holding events regularly. Set among the gorgeously picturesque Alps, and including great racing on a challenging and history-rich circuit, it's easy to see why fans and drivers are both eager every time they come for a race. Well, as you can see, this place is some good opportunities for overtaking, but honestly, it'll provide a lot of action in very few corners here, Joey.
It's because you look at this track map of 9 turns, 2.68 miles, and there are 3 corners with some big-time braking zones right after those long straightaways that you were talking about. That is turn 1, turn 3, and turn 4. Turn one, actually a little bit tricky, has a little bit of a funnel going into it, so you got to be careful, really posture your car there if you're going to try to make a pass. However, turn 3 is uphill, probably your best shot. That is a great passing opportunity up there. However, it can produce some nice side-by-side drag racing out of that corner downhill towards turn number 4. That's Schlossgold down there. So that is downhill. It's also very, very tricky to get the car stopped. And then after that, the track actually kind of opens up a little bit. Turn 6 is kind of a long left-hander, but then 7 and 8 is very fast and flowing, and it leads into the final series of corners. Basically a double right-hander that is so fast, you have to keep the car on the track. Barney is out there all the time watching that track limit. If you go out too far, you will get a time penalty.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few drivers go over the incident limit as well, which we'll talk about in a moment. But first, let's discuss the championship situation, because Kimmo Viekainen still leads right now, but that is helped out by the drop weeks somewhat. That said, if it was total points, Kimmo would be much farther ahead than Juho Raina. But obviously, Juho having to make up for a couple bad results over the course of the season, whereas Kimmo has never finished off the podium. Antti Lepisto also helped by those drop weeks, jumping up to 3rd now. And then Hugh Haycox, who unfortunately is not here, has been getting some decent finishes out there, just hasn't really been as high up as I think he would like, but still remains within the top 5. Biggest surprise is perhaps Barry West and Sam Ryman doing an excellent job in the F1 standings within the top 10 for almost the whole season so far. But we also have the F2 standings, both of which those drivers used to compete for, but now we got a different crowd.
And it honestly is kind of spread out right now. Thomas Silbernagel is 27 points ahead of Timothy Vanderberg, so if you want to go up and claim that top spot, you're going to have to go and finish better than Silbernagel out there. Vanderberg there in 2nd, Chris Roberts in the 3rd place. And really from Chris Roberts, down to about Robert Simpkins down here. That includes Miguel Moreland, Arnold Cook, and then Robert. They're only about 10 points each out from each other, so things can shape up, and we're on the back half of the season here. I wonder which drivers are going to kind of coast to the finish line over the remaining rounds, or which ones are going to charge it to the end.
Indeed, usually you see a lot of mix-up there in that F2 standings all the way to the finish, but let's discuss what this race itself is going to hold for our drivers. 27 laps around here, because they do get through this place pretty quickly, and they have an open setup in this series. But this is a track where I imagine you're going to see a lot of drivers try to trim out the wings as much as they can, get that straight line speed. Don't have a spare car. Now, this is a modern F1 track now at this point, and it's got a lot of paved runoff, but there's definitely good opportunities to hit those curbs, and that could chuck you into the wall quite easily. So it could be easy to get damage if you're not careful. We talked about those incident limits. A drive-through penalty at 17 and a DQ at 25. That paved runoff is a pain at this track, and it is often noted by drivers both in the real world and here in the virtual world. So watch out for those who are getting a little bit sloppy going over the white painted lines. And then right now, Antti Lepisto holds the provisional pole, interestingly, over Timothy Reed in 2nd.
Timothy Reed put down a fantastic lap time to put himself in that 2nd place position. As we watch Gernot Friesche, he's actually putting down his first lap out there, I believe. His first lap actually might not have counted, so maybe he had gone off track, collected that 1x incident limit, and holy smokes, do you see JDS, a 120.6, snags the top position.
Wow, a surprise at the top. And we do have Kimmo Viekainen and Juho Raina here today, but both of them are down in 4th and 5th, and neither had a lap deleted, which normally I would suggest that maybe they had missed one and had to put a banker lap in, but no, they both looked like they were pushing both laps and had them manage to count. But let's see if Gernot Friesche can maybe also give us another shock before all is said and done on his one and only lap. Coming across the line, he'll cross the timing beam here at 120.546, and that will be pole for Gernot Friesche.
Look at this qualifying session. I'm loving what I'm seeing. Jean-Francois Boscus slides into the 13th spot here. Here's Gaston Santarelli coming out of the final few corners out here in the number 18 car. He can still put down a lap time, but he will be the only car that can still qualify.
I actually don't look at the pole positions much on my stat sheet, but it does look like Gernot holds the record for the most, and I think if this is accurate, this is going to be his 157th pole position that he has managed. So let's go through that starting order here today. And Gernot Frische, as I said, on the top spot, will be flanked by Jack David Spickett, an unexpected front row, with Antti Lepisto starting from third, and then Timothy Reed starting P4. Kimmo Viekainen will be all the way down in fifth, with Juho Raine, his championship rival, alongside him on that third row. Dylan Freckleton will start seventh, and Daniel Banker eighth. Then it's Daniel Gallus in ninth, and Kostas Zafiris in 10th.
Then in 11th, we have Sam Ryman back here. Ian Haycock's going to be lined up in the 12th position right next to him. Jean-Francois Boscas in 13th. Chris Roberts in 14th. Gaston Santarelli here in 15th position. Barry West in 16th. Cam Porter 17th. And then the final two racers today will be Patrick Samaran and AJ Roper back in 19th place.
A lot of chatter among the drivers. I think they were even surprised by the results of this one, with Gernot Frische taking some congratulations for the pole, but saying thanks, but race counts. So there you go. He knows where the points really lie, as there is our conditions for the track. Pretty ideal out here. And sounds like we've got a significant marker for Sam Ryman here, Joey.
Yeah, I'm seeing in the chat that he's saying it is race number 2,000 for Sam Ryman. He is involved in that F1 championship, so hey, maybe the numbers might come together for him and have a great result today.
Sounds like, I guess the drivers have checked, and this is the first non-finished front row since Spa Season 2 and 23. If that's correct, that is incredible that it's been locked out by Finns for this long, as we just about have everybody gridded up here. So we should see that flag come out soon. There are the lights as the engines start to rev, and the green flag is out off the line. Frische does not look quite as strong as a third row that is actually just blasting forward. And Kimmo Viekainen almost looking at second place here by the time he gets to turn one. They're going to manage to make it through that first corner. But my goodness, the 3 car is just charging.
I'm curious about Jack David Spickett, but here comes Viekainen. Look at him just blow past the Pepsi machine on the straightaway as we approach turn number 3. Oh, there's a really late breaker. I believe that's Dylan Freckleton. He gets the car stopped, but it's still Gernot Frische leading the way. Jack David Spickett and Kimmo Viekainen still searching for a way around in second.
Oh, and Sam Ryman looks like he's coming to a halt at the back, so not sure what happened for him. I think he'll get it going once more. Is still a side-by-side battle for second down in the Schlossgold between Kimmo Viekainen and Jack David Spickett as they head down into the infield section. The inside goes to Kimmo. He takes second for good now. Oh, or does he?
Yeah, watch the over-under. I feel like Jack David Spickett brought a very high downforce setup here. Watch him accelerate through these turns. Kimmo Viekainen, now that he's on the straightaway, he's going to start to crawl it back. But if JDS can close the door through this fast right-hander, he might have the position. Viekainen shoves it in there.
He's going to try and cross him over once again, but this time it doesn't quite work. As we fly down the front stretch once again, it is Frische, Viekainen, Spickett, your top 3. Kimmo must have gotten the start of all starts because there was no black flag for that and almost contact.
Jack David Spickett is bringing some speed, but what he has brought is a completely different setup than everybody else. Looking right behind him, Antti Lepisto is now going to look to the outside as this is Dylan Freckleton battling side by side with Gallus.
Coming up into Remus once again. We saw Freckleton have problems last time, and he has problems again. He does get it woed up in time. Gallus around the outside, still going to try and fight him as we come back to Lepisto and Spickett. He's not only lost out to Kimmo, but he's got another Finn attacking.
Well, and JDS is in an awkward position right here. With this high downforce setup, he's always playing defense, but now that he's got a little bit of room to breathe, he can kind of go for it. Oh, contact there. I believe that was Raine into Lepisto.
He's going to gather it back up, but nearly went out into the gravel. He'll fall down to 7th. You're right, that was Juho, who now moves up into 4th position. This has been quite the wild race coming from a wild qualifying here in this series. But ahead of it all, Gernot Frische still leads.
Yeah, he's trying to run away with it, come around the final corner, complete lap number 2 here at the Red Bull Ring. Comfortable 1.2 seconds over Kimmo Viilakainen, but now Jack David Spickett doesn't have anybody in his mirror. We're going to see what's going to kind of prevail, the low downforce or the higher downforce.
Oh, Lepisto's having problems here, and he gets off the corner a little bit better despite what looked like a bit of wheel spin through Lauda. That's Daniel Banker that's now fighting him for 6th position.
I don't see any damage on Lepisto's machine, so I wonder if he just kind of got shoved off of the racing line a little bit. Needs to gather it back up, take a breath out there.
As we check back in with Daniel Gallus now, and this is down in 11th spot as he's fighting with AJ Roper, who's done a great job coming from the back of the field. He failed to set a qualifying time, and he's up 9 places in 3 laps.
It's a really good spot there. You're right, AJ Roper on the move, going forward right now. However, the further forward you go in each race, those passes, they get tougher and tougher and tougher.
Absolutely. So that orange number 17 going to have his work cut out for him from here. Some of the drivers kicking up a little bit of dust as they push the limits of this circuit out to the gravel pits. And Jack David Spickett still sitting in 3rd after losing at least 1 place. But I think he's kind of put himself back in position behind Kimmo and is going to try and go on the attack a little.
I'm really curious where he's going to attack, though, because he doesn't have the straight line speed. It all comes from the braking and the corner exit here. Now, you say corner exit. Well, if you can exit the corner faster than Kimmo, that should provide you a good passing opportunity. But no, just that top speed is not there for that Pepsi machine. The pass is going to have to come in an unconventional area here at this track.
Maybe see if he can get a bit of a mistake out of him somewhere, or just send it in as deep as he can and try and outbrake him through the corner. Oh, and there goes around Zafiris, who gets turned by, trying to figure out who that was. And then meanwhile, off the track, I think that was Santarelli we saw in the white and blue.
I believe it might have been off of the nose of AJ Roper, but I think things were kind of already turned around there in turn number 3 as we watch Gaston Santarelli here. The number 18 car. He's kind of the caboose on, I'm counting this, Joe. I see about 7 or 8 cars in this train.
Yeah, the mid-pack is looking a little wild right now as we check out Santarelli back here in that 16th position. You're right, it is quite a train forming all the way up to about AJ Roper there in 9th place. So a lot of cars in contention, but that means if any one of them slips up, they're giving up multiple spots.
And it's not an odd thing to see here at the Red Bull Ring. I feel like these, in quotation marks, DRS trains do kind of form a little bit. Everybody's got a similar top-end speed, so it's all about getting those corner exits, and then basically, how deep can you take it in the brake zone?
Robert's going to try to take it as deep as he dares, but Barry West will fend him off for that 14th position. He talked about the corner exit before. Looks like Robert's got a decent one, but I don't know if he's got enough to try and slam it up the inside through Remus.
Well, especially with Barry West going nice and defensive there, right in the middle of the racetrack. And did you see those raccoon eyes in that helmet there? That was quite a visor he had.
I was going to say, he's kind of mimicking the old school helmets that they used to have. That's very cool. Don't really see those for a long time, frankly, but I like that nod. That is definitely a clever little one as he goes a little wide, and Chris Roberts now will pick that spot up with ease.
Yeah, but thankfully he didn't spin the car around. Barry West loses a couple positions, but stays alive.
Oops, Sam Ryman's back in it, but he's also clipping the grass a little bit as he fights with Patrick Samaran. So that's for 17th. They'll have to back out and try again later.
This is back up front, and I think the biggest change that I've seen from the first handful of laps is all of a sudden Gernot Frische has some company. He was about 1.5 seconds out front in front of Kimmo Viilakainen, but all of a sudden that has closed up now down to about 10 car lengths, and he has brought all of his party buddies with him.
I wonder if some of that was because they were fighting so hard behind him that allowed him to run away a little bit, but now that they've settled out, he's got at least 2 Finns and Jack David Spickett that are trying to reel him back in. And I guess you could really put Timothy Reed in there in the number 6, kind of gaining on them there in that red machine.
Yeah, but I think Juho Reina is probably the one that's caught my eye the most out of this top group. I know that Timothy Reed is doing a fantastic job, also had a really good qualifying session, but really Juho's been the one to drive it up through there as Dylan Freckleton makes a really aggressive move down there into turn number 4. Going to take away 7th spot from Daniel Banker.
Right, and that actually gives a good opportunity to A.J. Roper, who starts to get closer to their gearboxes now. So battle for 7th, once again in the mid-pack, going up through Vert, climbing the hill, then cresting it as a plunge down to the main straight to the lowest part of the track, as you'll see them try to keep it within the boundaries of these white lines coming through here. And you got to be careful because some of those curbs on the exit as well, these are very low-slung cars.
We had talked about those track limits pre-race, right? You got to keep it in the limit, but you're right. Those exit curbs, if you abuse them too much, you can damage the underside, the aerodynamics on this car, and all of a sudden, you not only lose the top end, but you just lose overall aerodynamic grip when you need it.
Look at Roper. He's got a very good go at Banker, and he's going to try and duck to the inside up into Remus, trying to break as late as he can. Banker fights him round the outside. A little bit of wheel spin for AJ, and now it's a drag race for the second time.
Yeah, I think Roper's going to complete this pass. He's got the track position. He's got the right side here as you go into turn number 4. Just don't overshoot the brakes. Protect the over-under on the way out. But a nice real defense from Banker. He stays there. Going to slip back in line from AJ Roper now and try to follow him through on maybe get that position back from Dylan Freckleton.
Great respectful battle from all of them, though. Good stuff as we check out Ian Haycox, who is actually still where he started this race. Very few people, I think, can say that at this stage, giving us his perspective once again with his webcam. He's got Jean-Francois Boscus in front of him, and Daniel Gallus almost weaving a little bit to try and break the toe.
Not surprised by that. I mentioned kind of the air quotes DRS train earlier, and if you can kind of break any sort of slipstream from that car behind you, you're just allowing, I like to think of it as a stiff arm, right? If you can keep them at stiff arm length, they can't touch you up there.
Exactly. As we come back to the lead, Jack was getting kind of close to Chemo. Couldn't quite make an attempt at a pass this time, though. But definitely looking a bit like that DRS train that you mentioned up here at the front as well, because they've caught Gernot, but they can't seem to get much closer.
And I think the one that's got the toughest job right now is the Pepsi machine in third place, Jack David Spickett. His car is so unconventional, it makes speed in all the different areas and the cars around him. So it's very, very interesting. What's his mindset going to be when you can't make room on the straightaways, and then when you come up to these brake zones, you're just nowhere close enough to make a pass? However, you've got one of the fastest cars on the racetrack. What do you do with it?
That's a good question. Kind of watching to see what his steering looks like through some of these quicker corners. And I will say, yeah, the downforce is doing the trick because he looks incredibly smooth.
Well, and that's confidence, right? And you can drive the car and place it wherever. That's what you need in terms of qualifying and putting a fast lap down. But when you talk about the race car, it has to be able to pass. And if you can't pass, you're just kind of stuck out there. I think the one thing that's going for him is Kimmo Viilikainen is catching Gernot. If those two battle, it might provide that unconventional opportunity to get 2 for 1.
That's probably going to be his best hope, if we're honest. But coming up through Remus, once again, he's not nearly close enough to capitalize on Viilikainen. As behind them, we go back to Jean-Francois Boscus, who I think managed to just make an overtake on Gallus. And now Ian Haycox is going to try and add to that as well. He sneaks up the inside of Remus and move Ian to 11th.
Well, it was a textbook late break pass here. See if Gallus is going to come back down the hill. Looks like Ian Haycox is far enough forward to defend that nice and easy there, staying on the racing line. And actually, Gallus slips up just a little bit, falling into the clutches of Cam Porter now.
Yeah, haven't talked about Cam much in this race, but he's up 4 from the beginning, so he's doing pretty decently for himself. And let's see if he can snag one more from Daniel as they head down through Rauch and into Vert once again. It definitely looks like Daniel's maybe losing a little bit of touch with those in front of him as we now check in with Cam's video.
And you know what? Since we've got Cam on screen here and we've talked about it before, I'm starting to wonder why Cam Porter doesn't have a nice woodwork-themed paint livery. Like a nice mahogany Chris Craft theme would look nice out there.
Yeah, I think we talked about that. Needs that, a 70s wood-sided car kind of look to it. But as Cam Porter, yeah, and there is the difference between the handling. I talked about the smoothness before that we saw from Jack David Spickett. You could see the sawing at the wheel that Cam's doing as he goes through some of these turns.
He looks down to the inside of Gallus. He wasn't anywhere close enough to make that pass, but sometimes it's just posturing the car, putting it in an area of the mirror that driver isn't suspecting, and then all of a sudden it forces a mistake. So here's Cam Porter doing the exact same thing, just presenting the car in the mirror, trying to get Daniel Gallus off of his game just a little bit.
Well, he does get him off the apex slightly, but Daniel doesn't make too big of an error there. He'll hold on to 12th, at least for the time being. But it does look like he's dropping away from those two in front of him. Viekainen, in the meantime, still remains at roughly half a second behind Gernot Frische, and they're all really pushing these track limits, going right out to the edge. I do believe in a couple of those corners, and I'll need to check the rules here, that you are allowed to at least keep one tire in contact with the curb itself, and that should be allowed, but they can only go so far on that.
And I'm looking at timing and scoring over here, Joe. The one thing that these leaders do have going for them, every single one of their fast laps is a registered lap out there. So at least for now, it seems like they're keeping it in the lines. That's
good to see. I'm checking, and it is actually the green and white curbing that is the edge on those final two corners I'm seeing. Thank goodness to iRacing for giving us those specifics within the sim here so we can double check. And yeah, they should be well within those boundaries if that is the case. Meanwhile, Zefiris here fighting for last, and he's going to demote Patrick Samaran down to that position.
I think that both these cars have had some issues on the racetrack. Remember, it was Sam Ryman here battling with Samaran earlier, and now Sam is looking down to the inside of Santarelli, but this is a battle back here for 16th place position.
Very curious what happened to Sam there on the first lap that forced him to slow down, because the car seems okay now. Maybe he had just a little bit of a spin or something that he didn't quite like, or maybe he's just doing Sam things. We know that often he'll kind of try and get out of trouble and let cars go, but that seems a bit extreme.
Yeah, I agree with you. In fact, I'll go back and take a look at it and see exactly what happened, but Sam is in that F1 points championship, and I know that he's not just going to give up any points if he doesn't want to, right? I know that he's an incredibly safe driver, but you're right. Just pulling over and letting all those points go by doesn't really seem like Ryman.
Well, he's going to try and get some of them back with Santarelli while Joey's going to check out, see what kind of information he could find there. Good run for Sam on Gaston. And Gaston holds the racing line. That is natural there, going off to the right-hand side. He'll leave the door open now as he heads off to the left. Sam is much better on the brakes coming into Remus. Now he just has to finish it up off the corner, and it's not completely done because Gaston also gets a better exit.
Yeah, he's right in that slipstream. Let's see what top-end speed this number 63 has. He moves to the middle of the racetrack, really goes defensive, holds off Santarelli at least on the entry, and puts down the loud pedal. A nice pass from Sam Ryman.
All right, back up to 16th. Next up is going to be Barry West, and he and Barry have often talked about how they seem to wind up next to one another. So here we go again between that pair as we come back to the battle for the top spots between Frische, Viekainen, and Spickett. It looks like Juho is dropping off slightly, though.
Agreed, and I tell you what, you come away from this battle for a couple laps and you come back and it looks the same. It's just closer, isn't it? It's only about 3 or 4 car lengths between the top 3 now, and you're right, Juho Reina is about 1 second back, but I'm going to bring up that point that you mentioned earlier, is that if any one of these 3 start to battle, Juho will be right there.
That's true. But yeah, you're right. It's a tenth closer for Viekainen, and I guess it just has to be those small margins that he chips away at Gernot Frische. We haven't mentioned it yet this broadcast, but for those that don't know, Gernot has the most wins in the Sunday Grand Prix series by a large margin, but he hasn't been as successful lately. He's started to win again lately, though. He broke, I think it was a 2-year streak some months ago. and has gotten at least 1 or 2 since then. Can he add to the tally today? Because this is perhaps the best position we've seen him in some time.
Well, and remember back in qualifying, his first lap didn't count, and then he just laid it down there on the second lap. So he definitely has speed here at the Red Bull Ring. He's got Kimmo Viekainen, which I feel is on a very similar car right behind him. So as long as Gernot does Gernot things, a.k.a. be incredibly smooth, I think he's in cruise control out front. It's just going to be up to these next 2 cars how much they're going to battle or how much they're going to fight Gernot if there is a mistake made.
And that might be the most frustrating aspect for the number 3, is that Gernot doesn't often make mistakes. So trying to pressure him into one is going to be a difficult task, and he's really got to get closer than this, I think, to put true pressure on that yellow number 2 at this stage. We'll see if he can continue to close it down. He lost a couple tenths since we last looked, and it's back up to 6 or 7 now, up to that lead car. So they spread apart slightly, and Jack David Spickett doesn't mind that. Looks like he actually has gained a little bit on Kimmo too.
And, you know, if you're in the position of Gernot Frisha, you might think, oh, well, you got to set the pace out there. But Gernot has won how many times? 150 sometimes. This is literally like a practice session out there. If he doesn't have to look in the mirrors, even better for Gernot. It's just running laps.
Another incident of Sam Ryman going slowly off of the corner, and I'm not sure why. He was in a battle with Santarelli, let him go, and then let go Safiris as well. So 2 positions given right back by the Floridian. I guess I should say the Brit originally, but resides in Florida these days. And Safiris ahead of him, Santarelli up to 16th. Can he get those back?
Really interesting. When I went back and looked at the first lap for Sam Ryman back there, I thought that maybe just a little bit of an equipment malfunction, because he pulled it off to the side of the road, seemed to get everything refired, and then got it going again. But you're right, this second one, a little bit puzzling for me as we check in on AJ Roper. Oh, look at the big lockup there from Dylan Freckleton. That just opens the door. Through goes Roper.
That's the 3rd time we've seen Freckleton overshoot that same corner. So he is going to be maybe needing some coaching for at least that aspect of this track. The rest of it, he's not doing too shabby, although he struggles a little bit there heading down through Schlossgold, staying off the apex. Roper now up 12 positions with that pass into 7th.
Well, maybe Freckleton can take some notes from AJ Roper. Like you were saying, up 12 positions. Definitely our biggest mover as we check back in on Cam Porter, looking down to the inside of Daniel Gallus. Doesn't quite get that position. He also has Chris Roberts right behind him as we go through this fast and flowing section through the racetrack, really using the downforce in these cars.
Absolutely, and behind Daniel Gallus, who once again kind of weaves a little bit on the track to keep Cam Porter away from him. Will try and do that as best he can over the next couple straights, because these are the long ones. First down the main straight here. Cam's also got Chris Roberts right behind him, creating a bit of a threat in this fight for the 12th position. Up through Lauda now. It's a big run up to turn 3 at Rebus, and that was a great exit from Daniel Gallus, honestly.
Yeah, they're all just kind of about 3 or 4 car lengths, but Cam is closing it up here in the slipstream. He's going to poke the nose down to the inside, but in classic Cam Porter fashion, we've seen him do this several times. He presents the car, but he knows he's not close enough to make that lunge, so he doesn't.
Back to that battle between Santarelli, Zafiris, and Ryman. Ryman struggling off of Remus, and Santarelli still having that bright yellow number 13 filling his mirrors as they plunge down into Schlossgold. Costas is going to give a big look up the inside, but he's not close enough.
Remember, Zafiris was spun around earlier in this race. He carries the number 13 board, so qualified way up there in, I'm seeing 10th spot. I think he's got some work to do after that early mistake.
Fastest lap being traded back and forth by a number of the front runners. In the meantime, that was almost a side-by-side move between Freckleton and Roper coming up through Rindt in the final turn. Not a place that you'll often see drivers manage to successfully go side-by-side, but we'll see if he does it again, because he's still tight right behind that gearbox.
You were just talking about how Dylan Freckleton could probably take some notes here in turn 3. Let's see how he approaches it this time. Pokes the nose out. Does he get it stopped? No lockup, much better. Maybe he is learning a thing or two from AJ Roper right in front of him, and they'll go up. I can't say that. They're about 10 seconds behind Antti Lepisto.
Yeah, it's a ways to go to catch up to them. Also, poor Daniel Gallus had, I think, a problem through turn 1 and gave up both spots to Porter and Roberts. So he is actually falling off of them as well. And Barry West says, thank you. I think I'll have a bit of that myself. Can't quite make it stick down through Schlossgold.
This is an awesome battle way back here in what is kind of the 13th, 14th, 15th areas. Daniel Gallus still on the inside of the racetrack now. Barry West still trying to find his way through. Gonna have to look for a new area because I mentioned this is kind of the faster area of the racetrack. Really use those aerodynamics, but it also kicks up that dirty air to the car behind you.
It does, and as we watch them down into Rent once more, you can see just how much that track drops away and then compresses here into the final turn back on the main straight. But Barry can't seem to get quite the run that he needs to become a threat once again. We'll see if he manages to do hit here in. Whoa, Lauda, he doesn't need it, as Gallus for the second lap in a row is going to go wide at the first corner.
Such a bummer there. Turn 1 is incredibly tricky. It pretty much crests over the hill there at the apex, throws you all sorts of curveballs. But here is the front battle here. I've noticed that Kimmo Viekainen in the last 2 laps has gotten incredibly close to Gernot Frische, especially in the back half of the racetrack here.
I think this is the closest we've seen him since the start of this race. I'm hoping he comes in and talks to us, because I need to ask him about that start and what in the world did he do to get that thing off the line, because going from 6th up to almost 2nd by the first corner is pretty much unheard of, considering it didn't look like it was a horrible start for everybody up front.
No, but, you know, I'm going to draw some knowledge from another series, the 49s, and I know that some of those competitors, they'll change that first gear, or specifically the gear ratio, to get that track position on the launch. I wonder if that was a trick that Kimmo used.
That could be. That's a good point. I'm not sure if he's going to be mum on that, because usually they do share setups in this series, but you gotta hold at least a few things close to your chest, as we got a battle for 5th position. This is Lepisto versus Reed.
Yeah, and Timothy Reed trying to get around Antti Lepisto here right in that slipstream. Going down to turn number 4. He is close enough. Does he poke the nose? No, he stays right there behind Antti. I wonder if this is maybe just a little bit of a chess game.
Yeah, and kind of surprising to see Lepisto struggling this hard. I wonder if he did get a little bit of damage from that contact. Remember that he had a little earlier. Santarelli has been in a lot of action today, side by side with Zefiris, and that opens the door for Sam Ryman to pick up the position.
Yeah, but Sam got pinched down really hard on that exit, so now Zafir is battling back. He's actually going to clear Ryman before they even enter the break zone here into 4, but Sam tucks it into the apex nice and tidy. I think he might have a little bit more speed than Kostis, especially with the mistakes that we're seeing out of that yellow car.
Sam finally getting a little bravery underneath him here and going on the attack at times to try and get a few of these positions back. JDS taking the fastest lap now up there towards the front. I'm sure we'll see that traded back and forth a few more times before all is said and done. Let's check in with Roberts and Porter, though, as it got close there through the final corner.
Yeah, definitely here, and Roberts all over the back. Also has Barry West as the 3rd car in the train. See what kind of exit they get out of turn number 1. It is so crucial because it leads onto this monster straightaway that leads all the way uphill. A great passing opportunity if you're really in that draft. Use that slingshot maneuver, and it's really Barry West looking to the inside here of Chris Roberts. Gets the nose up there and leaves him room, but Roberts is going to capitalize on the exit.
Always fascinates me seeing the corner exit off here of Remus here, because that outside sometimes can defend contact, though, between Zefiris and Santarelli. They'll get away with it, but I don't think it's done. Kostis has a look to the inside, coming down towards the braking into Schlossgold. He's going to manage to outbrake him. Oh, no! He's going to run into the side of him again, as in front somebody has had an issue. There was a lot of smoke, and Zefiris elbows his way past.
Yeah, he's definitely getting those side pods out and making them a little bit bigger. So Kostis Zefiris, after the early spin, back up into the 15th place position.
So that, I went back and checked, that was Roberts having to spin on his own down through Schloss Gold. So single car incident, he'll get going back in 14th. As we check back in with the top spots, Gernot Frische basically just being the Iceman up here at the front over Kimmo Viekainen and Jack David Spickett, unable to chip anything out of him.
And to put this into perspective for everybody watching, the fast laps from the top three, Gernot 120.2, Kimmo 120.3, Jack David Spickett 120.2. So all three of these drivers literally identical on that overall speed.
Almost wonder if maybe Kimmo is being held up a bit here, but he can't get close enough, because we have to remember the wake can be a problem in these cars, and maybe there's just a whole lot of straight line speed on Gernot's compared to Kimmo's.
I think when I look at the Bob Ross landscape, the fastest car of the three is JDS right here in the Pepsi machine. The fastest race car of the three, I think, is either Gernot or Kimmo. Only the checkered flag is going to tell us who's going to be the winner, though.
Exactly. It's not the one lap pace that counts. It is the entire race itself that matters here. And that's what Gernot said at the very beginning before the green flag fell. That's where the points are, and he knows it. Now, he's not in this championship hunt, though, because he missed the first three races. He might gather it up a little bit towards the end, as Santarelli is going to try and go past Zafiris. These two have come to blows already in this race, as Zafiris goes a bit wide. Sam Ryman can't manage to pick his way past, but we get another go at it. Oh, and pinching him down. You got to be careful with that. Costas almost pushing him off again. He tries to go into the side of him. They keep it from becoming a wreck out here, but that time shoving him off course, just getting those elbows out. Santarelli goes wide.
Very interesting posturing going down the front straightaway between Zafiris and Santarelli there, and I'm just very thankful that they both came out the other side, pointed the right direction, and it looks like actually Santarelli's going to lose one more spot here to Patrick Samarin.
Just spun up the tires. He's got to be a little bit flustered. And all that, he actually had the time to type in 2 question marks in the text chat. I don't know how people do that, but he did it. And meanwhile, Sam Ryman, having gotten one of those, sees a little bit of a slip up from Zafiris. Not enough, though, to try and attack here into Rauch.
We've seen lots of little mistakes from Zafiris, and I think that's really what's handicapping him and keeping him way back here, because I feel like if he just cleans it up a little bit, he does have the speed to run away, but he just runs wide in all of these corners. Sam Ryman, though, is nice and tidy as we jump back up to this battle between Timothy Reed and Antti Lapisto for the top 5.
Yep, up and over the hill here, getting ready to send it into the break-in of Schloss Gold. Once again, this is Schoenbergerrad that they run across, and then through the right-hander. They're going to keep it nice and tidy this time. Lapisto's been dealing with this quite well, though, again, a bit shocking that he does not have the speed today, both in the qualifying and here in the race, dropping back from the leaders as it progresses on. And it's only 5 laps to go, so this isn't a case of, well, he's got better pace at the end of the race. It is the end of the race.
I'm just going to throw out a theory here. I just wonder if Lapisto and Reed didn't have the practice time going into today, because I look at their fast laps and they're both at a 120.3 as well. So they've got equal pace as the front runners. It just seems like it took them a few laps to get there.
That's a good point. Good catch on that. That maybe, we've seen a couple drivers work like that lately, where they're just kind of here more for fun. They might not be hunkering down into the practice laps for hours compared to some of their rivals, and maybe that's how Antti Lapisto is these days, since we've seen him start to return to the series after a bit of a vacation. This is once again closer by Viekainen, now less than 0.3 of a second up to Frische.
Okay, so I want to set something up here between these two. I've noticed that Kimmo is extremely aggressive on that brake pedal, especially into turn 3 and turn 4. Gernot doesn't seem to be fazed by it. He totally lets it happen, but then he gets this monster run off of the corner exit. I feel like if there's going to be a move to happen, it's going to come from Kimmo way far back, doing some crazy send, but I do think he's got the performance to make it stick.
Well, and I mean, does he want to risk it? Because his battle again for the points is not with Frisch's. Roper and Freckleton go side by side down into Rauch. They're also going to have a little bit of contact. It looks like Roper is able to save it as he slides, but he gets another big slide. The tail wants to wag, and eventually he gets it pointed forward, but he's now lost that fight.
I have a feeling we're going to start to see that a lot more now that we're in really the closing few laps of this race. If you've been abusing those tires or if you've had any sort of a loose race car, it is going to be a handful right now. And check this out. Sam Ryman, using that consistency and speed, has gotten around Costas Safiris.
And we should stress that this series often prides itself on the gentlemanly racing. Everybody tries to fight fair out there, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to fight hard. And I think we're seeing that today with some impressive wheel-to-wheel racing. It's not typical for these cars to actually touch.
It is so nice to be able to show up every single week and race with your friends out there. It doesn't matter which continent they are. But as long as you're racing with your buddies and they give you room, you end up smiling at the end of the day. And I feel like in these vintage communities, doesn't matter if it's the 49s, the 79s, or the camel cars, you definitely get that feel as JDS right on the back of Villaikainen. But once again, he just doesn't have the straight line speed to make anything happen.
But another good exit there coming through Rent. He needs it out of one of these first few corners, though. Can he manage to launch it out of Lauda to try and give a go coming up into Remus as we follow in the sparking underside of Kimmo Villaikainen? He's right there. It's decent. I don't think it's enough.
I think this is that F-Zero view right now with that car right in front of him, sparking and throwing up all these colors everywhere. It's pretty cool.
Really fascinating ever since they made the changes to the car. Kind of one of the recent additions that it definitely throws a lot of sparks out. And as they come off of Remus, this is the closest we've seen him. Now, I know we've been talking about DRS, but there is none on these cars in the literal sense. It is all down to the draft instead. And he's not there to try and make a pass this time. But he continues to hold to the backside, so at least he's consistently closer.
Yeah, but let's watch this area. JDS is close enough. If Villaikainen has some worn-out tires, you might be able to take advantage of this high downforce. It was last lap in this corner right here that he really closed things up. And here comes JDS with another nice run, but he just doesn't have the top-end speed nor the brake zone to get it done here.
As they come through Rent once again. Yeah, this is where, like I said, he needs one of these turns that leads onto the long straights to really launch himself. White flag is out for Gernot Frisch now. 1 lap to go to try and hold on and take another win.
See if he keeps it nice and tidy over that turn 1 curb, which he does. Gets the excellent run down to turn number 3, and he is loving seeing Jack David Spickett pressure Kimmo Villaikainen because he knows if that's happening, he doesn't really have to worry about Kimmo and his mirrors. All Gernot's got to do is keep it together for another half a lap.
Still, he can't afford any little hiccup because surely Kimmo is going to try and pounce if he sees an opportunity here. They have not come his way at all in this race, so the slightest opening of the door will be his one and only chance.
See what happens here. Oh no, Dylan Freckleton with the problem on the racetrack. Definitely slow, but I'm looking at Jack David Spickett close it up on Kimmo Villaikainen once again. Remember, the previous 2 laps, he's been much faster through this corner. Can he do something with it on the final lap?
Here we go. He is right on top of him, but like you said, passing down into Rent really doesn't usually happen. Don't think he's there unless you get a mistake out of Villaikainen. I think that second place is going to be his, but mainly the win will be the number 2 of Gernot Frisch, who went from lights to flag.
Amazing drive from that number 2 car. Kimmo Villaikainen, you saw, does cross the podium in second place. Jack David Spickett will round it out in third.
Timothy Reed came home only 2/10 behind Lepisto as well, so that stayed tight right to the finish. Looks like Haycox and Boscus, Santarelli off track as well. Whoa, that was a look by Jean-Francois, and he goes all the way off the track. He might get a slowdown penalty. Yes, he does. He's got to give that back, or he'll get a very harsh penalty after the race. No, he doesn't give it back. He's going to find himself falling down the order, unfortunately.
Oh, and here's Cam Porter edging out Barry West in the final corner. What a race between these two. Cam Porter coming home 12th, Barry in 13th.
So Sam Ryman winds up 14th back there. In fact, all 19 cars will finish and on the lead lap. That is pretty impressive here today, as Zafir is heading into pit lane for some reason, though. Not sure what that is about, as I don't see a black flag next to his name. In the meantime, though, we're going to check out the results as Gernot Frische takes the win and adds to his tally of many as Kimmo Viekainen finishes P2 and Jack David Spickett will round out your podium. It is Juho Raine finishing in P4 today as Antti Lepisto will be P5, and then Timothy Reed was 6. We were following AJ Roper's progress. He went from 19th to 7th in the end. It was Daniel Banker who was 8th behind him. Dylan Freckleton, an up and down day, gives him 9th, and then Ian Haycox will get a top 10.
How about this drive from the number 16 car of Cam Porter, up 6 positions? Not the biggest mover, but the second biggest mover in today's race. Great drive there, and had that excellent battle with Barry West, who he always says that he's always on the racetrack in the same spot as Barry, who's there in 12th. Sam Ryman coming home 13th after having his hands full all race long. Patrick Samaran in 14th. Daniel Gallus in 15th. Chris Roberts 16th. Gaston Santarelli with those late race issues finishes in 17th. Jean-Francois Boscus in 18th, and Kostas Zafiris in 19th.
Looks like we've got our second place finisher ready to talk to us, Kimmo Viekainen. Let's find out what the secret is to that start, because Kimmo, it looked like you had nitrous in that thing or something.
Yeah, I don't know what happens on that start. I had 0 practice races this week. I choose the clutch, so I won't burn the rear tires at the start, and it looked like I had the best start I ever had.
I'll say I couldn't believe that you had managed to get up to second there by the time you hit the braking for turn 1. After that, though, it looked like it was a race of frustration. You were kind of stuck behind Kimmo almost the whole way, or behind Gernot the whole way.
Yeah, Gernot had a nice top speed, and I just watched the gap behind the JDS and Juho and other guys, so I kinda just did my laps there, and Gernot, he's not going to make any mistakes, so it's also nice to be on the second podium.
Well, understandable, since you're kind of thinking, well, I know you say you don't think about points, but the points battle is there, and collecting them today was valuable. Unfortunately, we'll have to keep it short here today, but congratulations on a top 3 once again.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
That was Kimmo Viekainen finishing P2, and I do believe Joey has our winner, Gernot Frische.
Gernot Frische, flag to flag with the pole position. How does it feel, bud?
Hi, Joey. It feels really good today because it's been a long time to have such a performance in a high strength of field race. So really happy today.
So what was the difference? Did you maybe put in a little bit more practice, or are you just happy with the Red Bull ring?
Well, that's a difficult question, because usually I don't like the track so much. I don't know it that well, even though it's my home turf. But yeah, I had quite good pace all season long, but I had some bad luck as well. So my finishes haven't been really showing what my pace was. But yeah, I never had pace to win a race so far this season. So this one was better than anything else, and I don't really know why.
Well, I love seeing you up front collecting these checkered flags again. You're the most winning driver in this series, so it's kind of right to have you on top of the podium. Going into Spa next week, you're going to keep that momentum and maybe be on the podium, stand up top again?
It would be really nice. Spa is one of my favorite tracks. Doesn't mean that I'm faster than the others, but it's really a perfect track for the car. So I think everybody likes it basically, and will be fun. It's going to be low downforce, so maybe a little bit different than this one. This was not that low downforce, but yeah, we'll see.
Well, Gernot Frische, thank you so much for coming and racing with us. You put on a heck of a show, the complete sweep. Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
I really have to thank Steve Bycroft and Mike the Turk for giving me some advice with my computer, because I had so many software crashes this season in the beginning, and I think some driver changes made a difference. So now it's running stable again, and I'm really thankful to these guys especially, and also to the iRacing customer support, which was also helpful. So yeah, thanks. See you.
That was Gernot Friesche, driver of the number 2, and it's not just the racing community on the track, it's the entire sim community that Gernot was just pointing out, lending a helping hand when people need it.
Yeah, always fantastic to see. And that's going to wrap us up for today. So we want to give a big thank you to the Lotus 79 community, as well as to the team today, Joey, Daniel, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. The next race is going to be at Spa, another classic, Sunday, February 11th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. But be sure to check out our other broadcasts, because in just a moment's time, we'll be at the majors at Daytona for the Intimidator. That'll start at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.
Wow.